Everyone, let's call today's Board of Trustees meeting to order at 3:50. Trudy, if you could please call the roll.
Belkowski,
Present.
Epic.
Here.
McNamee. Nunley. Pismo. Sheets. Stanger.
Here.
Swanson.
Here.
Zibble.
Here. Thank you. If we could please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for
which
which
stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I'm done, yeah.
And Mr. Zibble, would you please read the mission?
Certainly. Laketran is committed to providing quality public transportation services to all Lake County residents with special emphasis on meeting the transportation needs of seniors and people with disabilities.
Thank you very much. Are there any public comments in the room today? Seeing none. Is there a motion to approve the Laketran Board of Trustees Board meeting minutes of August 28th, 2023?
So moved.
Motion made by Mr. Zibble. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Mr. Swanson. Trudy, if you could please call the roll.
Epic.
Abstain.
McNamee.
Yes.
Sheets.
Yes.
Stanger.
Yes.
Swanson.
Yes.
Zibble.
Yes.
Okay, thank you, everyone. I believe our next item on the agenda is we are going to talk about the CAFR, but I do not believe we have anyone from the auditor here.
That is correct. They, actually, the reason they didn't want to come is strangely a good one. Normally they would come and present any findings or discussion they had, but this year the audit was perfect. So there's no management letter comments, there's no corrective action, there's literally nothing. We got a absolutely 100% no issues audit from the state. So Lisa worked very hard on that, and it is kind of one of her babies, and her baby graduated college. So we should all be very happy that she did such a great job and that we have gotten an audit with no issues whatsoever.
Well,
Congratulations.
congratulations.
Yes. Congratulations.
So Lisa, how many clean audits in a row is this?
I know Chuck asked me that too. And I'm like, I think it's like 25 or 26. So I'd have to look. It's in the CAFR on like the second page, I think, but I'm pretty sure it's 26.
No, I honestly think that deserves a round of applause.
I can't claim all of them. I've only been,
Thank you very much and congratulations.
thank you.
Were we doing any sort of discussion on the CAFR presentation?
I put it in the packet and it's just page 17. And I'm not going to go through it all, but the unmodified opinion is what's on there. That is the top. And then it kind of goes through all of it and just says no, no, no for all the audits. So, I mean, I could go through more if you wish, but that's pretty much sums it up.
I think we're okay unless anyone has a question from their review. I don't see any. So at this time, is there a motion to approve Laketran's 2022 audited financial statement and certified annual financial report CAFR as prepared by Zupka and Associates? Motion made by Mr. Sheets. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Ms. Stanger. Trudy, if you could please call the roll.
Epic.
Yes.
McNamee.
Yes.
Sheets.
Yes.
Stanger.
Yes.
Swanson.
Yes.
Zibble.
Yes.
All right, thank you, everyone. And Lisa, I'm going to turn it back over to you for our financial statements.
And I can kind of keep this one brief. There really isn't too much going into this. It's we're reporting on July of 2023. Again, I go through the middle column. We just look at the actual, comparing it to the budget versus last year. We are a little bit more regarding our revenues, and we're actually still a little bit under for our expenses, but we somewhat thought we might be. That really just depends on how the flow of the hiring is going through. So with that, we'll go to the detail on the second page. Okay, whoops. Okay, so year to date, our total revenue is at 18.5 million and our expenses are at 12.2. Again, the majority of our expenses are going to be in wages and benefits, and there's nothing that's really standing out being, that's not normal, let's say. Again, I can highlight on the revenue side, the federal and state, when you compare 2022 through 23, the revenue piece, that is back to normal. So I would say that 2023 is a pretty fair, before the pandemic, back to normal status. And if we go on, so the slide got changed in here in the packet. It wasn't because I didn't have it at the time when we sent out that packet. So I guess this is the format we'll use going forward for the cash balance. Gives our total cash with our operating reserves, which is 5 months. And then Andrea figured out the local share of the board approved projects and contracts and the local share of the grant commitments, along with the uncommitted funds, giving you your undesignated cash at the 26.2 million for Laketran. 498,000 for STS and Geauga Transit being at about almost 300,000. There will be, I believe, the report for this, which I think would be where I get my information on this. This isn't going to balance to that because I didn't have the new report yet for this one, but it will be in for next month when we go to due August. So, and then I'm going to skip through that one because that's kind of changed. So I kind of like to wait to report on the capital part until next time. But if we don't have any questions on that, we'll just kind of go through. Here's STS. Again, nothing really unusual. If you just look at 23 versus 2022, you can see that we are spending and the revenue's gone up, again, showing the recovery from that pandemic, 2023 being back somewhat to normal versus what we were before the pandemic in the summary. And then again, here's the detail. Of course, again, it's a service industry, so wages and benefits is going to be your biggest expense. And then that's, if there's no questions on STS, I don't know, STS pretty simple. Again, most of this too is also coming from a lot of the senior centers and stuff is who utilizes that. This one's new. This is going to be July is our second month. I reported for June last month for Geauga Transit. And of course, this is still in our transition. So as I've tried to set it up to be consistent so we can understand it the same as we do our own. We may do a little bit of tweaking and stuff as we go through. So their total operating revenue for 2023 actual versus budget is a little over 500,000. We did receive the final balance of their money from Geauga County, which I think was around the 200,000. Their total operating expenses year to date is around 223,000 through the end of July, which the most of it is July because there wasn't too much going on in June, leaving them a net income of around 300,000. And this kind of breaks it out. Very similar, almost exactly to what we have. So that'll change a little bit, but again, their budget's very tight. So we're watching it very closely to make sure that we're that we stay within our budget. So I think we approved like 1.3 million is what the board approved, with 300,000 of that being from the state for just one-time things. So, and that's also being represented in here as well. So anybody have any questions?
Are there any, excuse me, are there any questions or comments for Lisa? Seeing none, is there a motion to approve the July 2023 Laketran STS and Geauga Transit operating financial statements subject to audit and Laketran and Geauga Transit capital plan review? Motion made by Ms. McNamee. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Mr. Swanson. Trudy, if you could please call the roll.
Epic,
Yes.
McNamee,
Yes.
Sheets,
Yes.
Stanger,
Yes.
Swanson,
Yes.
Zibble.
Yes.
It looks like item number 10 is going to be a newer item on our report, and it's going to be an operations report.
Yeah, so this is one of the things when we did the board survey about what they would like to see in board meetings, a pretty consistent message was we'd like more ridership data. So I was providing that as part of my CEO report. I'm going to be turning that over to Matt to give a very brief sort of, highlights of what's going on with ridership. So this will be a regular thing. There's no action required, but feel free to, ask any questions you have of ridership.
Thank you. So I just wanted to do a couple high level overviews. Dial-A-Ride for July of 23 was actually up 5.7% over July of 22. On the next slide, you'll see that the denials remain at all-time or at historic lows. One thing that I would really like to point out is how extended service has affected local route ridership, especially. Year-to-date ridership from July of 22 to July of 23 was actually up 24%. As you can see, the blue line on the graph there is local route ridership. That's a huge jump, and that is all because of extended service. So, I mean, it's definitely working. And then wanted to kind of touch on some STS stuff as well. June of 23 actually had the highest ridership for STS with 42 day trips. So that is quite a few. We were running. So I just wanted to kind of cover a few high level things there. And any questions?
I had a question that, it's like tangentially related to this. Would we be able to get, seems really loud. Would we be able to get some more specific breakdowns of the extended service, like how many people or how many riders we've had, like how it's, I'd like, I'm thinking it would be better to, it would be nice to have like a more comprehensive analysis of like how it's going, like riders on Dial-A-Ride local and local route, you know, this time to this time or whatever. I'm just interested in seeing if it's really being utilized to its fullest effect, and if there's any like specific trends that we could pull out of that data.
Absolutely. I can definitely kind of shift my report to kind of look at those types of things as well. Yeah.
Yeah, or just if you wanted to send it out in a separate, thing, it's just something that I don't know if other board members have a similar interest, but at this point, since it's been a few months, I think it would be a good time to do a fuller analysis of that, how that extended service is going.
Okay.
Any other questions for Matt? Seeing none, let's move into the 6-month look ahead.
All right, I will be as brief as possible. We'll have a policy manual update next month. This is a result of the passage of the CBA and some other miscellaneous things that we've got pending. We will have a contract for the board to approve, which is a switch from Trapeze Pass to TripSpark Novus. This is, we've talked about this a little bit, but just as a reminder, this is the primary scheduling software for Dial-A-Ride. So Novus is a much newer piece of software offered by TripSpark, which is part of Trapeze, but it is sort of a separate company. Trapeze Pass is what we're currently using. This will result in an annual savings of about $61,000. So it's a significant decrease in our annual cost. But we also think that the software is better and will be able to meet our needs in the future better than Trapeze Pass will. This savings also should help us fund some of the IT initiatives coming out of the IT strategic plan. But we are, this is the result of the IT strategic plan and an extensive analysis done by Matt and Tammy in operations. So we are pretty excited about that. There is a one-time cost to do the switch over. It is a pretty extensive level of effort to make the transition. And so that's why there is an upfront cost to it. In November, we'll present the budget. So Lisa will bring our 2024 budget to you along with Geauga Transit, STS, capital, quite a few things in that now. We also have our annual fuel contract. This is another group purchasing effort led by PARTA in Portage County. So we'll be tagging on with them. This will be a nice benefit to Geauga Transit to be able to be part of a fuel cooperative purchasing agreement where they were not before. This includes both gasoline and diesel for Laketran and Geauga Transit. Then in December, we'll have approval of the budget for 2024. I'm sure you've all heard me say this before, but as a government agency, we have to have a budget to function. So passing a budget in December is very important, whether it's the full budget or a portion of it, should there be an issue, which we haven't ever had, but it is important that we have a budget. That's what allows us to just pay bills and employees. So not quite the same as a lot of private industry, but yeah, don't anticipate any issues. We'll have an org chart update that'll kind of be part of the budget. This will address a couple things that we're going to talk about in a little more detail next month, and a result of the IT strategic plan. And then in January, we will have our landscaping contract. It's always weird that you forget, in winter we do landscaping and in summer we do snow plowing. So it's a nice reverse of reality, but this is not a huge level of effort, but it's for a lot of our remote sites. Also in January, we will have a review and approval of the EEO plan. This is required by the Federal Transit Administration, and you'll get to see some nice statistics about what our employment base is made up of, male, female, and all those kinds of things. February or March, still as we are in item development phase, we don't have anything for those months. Inevitably, something will appear, but I am thinking that we may consider canceling one of those depending on what we see in the future. Still kind of far away, but usually we have stuff by now. So to not have anything for either of those months, it's just kind of, it's not that unusual, but we may need to cancel one of those meetings. I would lean towards February because it's always kind of a worse month weather-wise, but we'll see how things develop. And that would be my recommendation. Obviously, the board could do whatever it would like. And then in April, we have approval of the PTASK, which is an annual item where we approve the public agency, I can never remember, Public Transit Agency Safety Plan. I hate that acronym, but that's what we see coming up in the future. There'll also be some things as a result of our conversation today that I don't have on here yet, but those will get added to the 6-month look as we go. Questions? I'm gonna roll right into the CEO report if that's okay. Project remains on schedule. They are doing a good job. We are still expecting to be moving around in December, moving offices. The floor is done, has been poured. They're working on in-ceiling stuff. If you look into the building in detail, they already have some walls built out of concrete block and metal studs. So they are moving along just as expected. Furniture has been ordered for phase 1 and everything is on track right now. So it's been, it's good. Yes, sir.
How's our representative doing?
CT, they're doing a great job. They have been representing our interests well, and they've been keeping a tight leash on the contractors, and we still meet once a week. And it's definitely great to have them on board. I appreciate the board's desire to have them here for us. So it's been very good. Geauga Transit transition, man, say that 3 times fast. Geauga Transit transition. All of the fund transfers are nearly complete. The last one, the most major one, finished last month where they transferred the last kind of $200,000 to us. The last one should take place in a couple days on September 30th, which is the last of their money leaving Geauga County and coming to us. This was the $20,000 they requested to keep in the event there was an outstanding payroll liability or something like that. And happy to say they haven't had to use any of it. So all of the steps we took in advance put us in a good position. So they should be transferring another $20,000 from Geauga County to the Geauga Transit budget September 30th. For the IT strategic plan, we've been internally kind of reviewing the projects, going over it. One of the things that we didn't really talk about while the consultants were here was that, they had a lot of recommendations in that plan, and it's not likely or practical for us to do all of those. We are taking a look at that plan now strategically and saying which ones of these are really things we really want to push forward. What other things might we either delay or not do at all? So we're working on that internally, working on their staffing review. We do agree that we do need some more IT staff. Not sure we need to go with their entire recommendation. I think they kind of shot for the moon and we might be going a little bit less than that, but we still do have some challenges and needs within that we will be bringing to the board here in the future. But we're working on, which of all of those projects do we need to focus on? Because there are a lot of projects in that report. Lastly, the grant tracker has had plenty of activity. We're sort of tapering down from grant season. But you saw this fill up pretty rapidly as grant season took place. So I don't know if anybody has any questions about any specific grants. Most of it really this year is pretty routine. There's nothing really crazy or remarkable that I can think of that's on here. The Vine Street corridor is still on this report. There haven't been any changes. The cities actually haven't met to talk about how that money would be broken out. So it just sort of is hanging out there. We really will not, Laketran won't really plan anything for it without the cities telling us what they want. So it's just going to sit there until they have created the plan that they want to implement with it. So other than that, it's pretty much business as usual grant wise. That is kind of the extent of you've heard me talk a lot today, so it's probably enough for me, right?
What does recommended versus not recommended mean under final status?
So the CMAQ program, you apply through NOACA. NOACA sends their recommendations to the state, and then the state actually makes the award. So we applied for replacement commuter vehicles and dial-a-ride vehicles, and NOACA is pushing forward the commuter bus application.
Got it.
Any questions for me, CEO report wise? All right.
Thank you, Ben. Is there any old business in the room? Seeing none, is there any new business? And the first thing I would like to bring up, following on our retreat was STS. And I believe what we're looking for is a vote from the board to see if the board is supporting of continuing STS. So at this time, I would make a motion. Is there a motion or a support for STS to continue operating? And what continue operating would be to mean would be that Ben would be looking at purchasing new vehicles using all local money, and that the board would be supporting the mission of STS. So is there anyone that would be willing to make a motion for that? Okay, motion made by Ms. McNamee. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Ms. Stanger. And again, a yes vote is you are supporting the agency continuing with STS. Trudy, if you could please call the roll.
Epic,
Yes.
McNamee. Sheets,
No.
Stanger,
Yes.
Swanson,
Yes.
Zibble.
Yes.
Okay, thank you, everyone. The agency will be continuing on with STS. I do know that for any future equipment purchases like the buses that Ben will be getting pricing on, those will be a separate vote of the board at a later time when he's obtained the appropriate quotes. Next to new business, I will turn it over to you, Mr. Zibble, for an update on the status of the legal services RFP process.
Yes, I've had numerous discussions with Andrea and Ben regarding this legal services for the RFP. We've worked through the scope of services. It was transmitted to you guys, I think, yesterday. Sometime Friday, I think it was. And if you have any comments or questions regarding that, please get back to Ben or to Andrea about it. It said something about final comments being in by Thursday, either to me or to Ben. I would request that they go to Ben. I'm going to be leaving on a vacation on Friday, so I won't have much time to
Well, Chuck,
communicate with anything.
We really don't have to continue talking about this because according to the Ohio ORCs, the hiring of a legal counsel is totally up to the board, has nothing to do with an RFP. We can hire anybody, anytime we want, and for however much we want, and we can get rid of it anytime we want. And that's in the laws of the state of Ohio. So I don't even know why we're talking about this.
I
We don't need an
respectfully
RFP.
disagree with you on that, and I will
Pardon?
just say, I respectfully disagree with you on that.
Well, that's okay.
Aspect.
You're wrong.
No, I can say the same about you, but,
Well, but I have the law behind me.
okay.
Well, regardless of where the law may stand on the issue, it is a fair statement that at the last board meeting, the board took a vote to move forward with the RFP process and tasked Mr. Zibble with creating the RFP. That is a fair objective statement.
And the procurement is over $25,000. Based on what the board heard a few meetings ago.
I think there's some gray area and some interpretations that could become subjective, but in fairness to Mr. Zibble, the board did ask him to do this work at the last meeting. I think that that's an accurate statement, but is there gray area in the interpretation? Yes, I think that's also a fair statement.
Yeah, Donna, I don't think the 25,000 comes into play at all. In our own rules. Article 5, all expenditures of $25,000 or more shall be authorized by the board. Doesn't say anything about an RFP process. Doesn't say we're required to do that. So we're not required by our own rules, let alone the legal opinion. But nevertheless, if that's what we choose to go forward on, we can do that. That's also our right.
The only addition I would make to that is that our procurement manual does support the authorization of the $25,000 in requiring the competitive bidding for those, for contracts over 25,000.
And as we talked about the last time we had this discussion, those rules are in place for those folks. We're the board. We don't have those rules. We're not required to abide by, we make those rules for the normal events of running a business, subject to administration, not the board. We're not subject to those rules at all. There's nothing that says we're required to accommodate that rule.
And I would just argue a little bit back on that from the standpoint then of what you're saying here in terms of legal authority for us to hire people, then we would be able to hire engineers and architects up to $100,000 without going through the RFP process also. Because the code does say those people specifically.
I think that's probably right. If it's in the Ohio Revised Code, yes. I couldn't.
Would you like to let us do that then? Hire engineers and architects?
At the board level? Sure, we have that authority.
We have to approve everything though, too, Gary. And that's what the rules say, that we have to approve everything over 25,000.
But it doesn't say we have to go through an RFP.
Procurement manual does, and I would still argue back with you that the procurement manual is part of the organization which we are part of.
No, we're
The
not.
legal authority is also being hired as support services for the staff and the organization.
It's a management tool that the board imposes. We'll just disagree on that one. We're not subject to that rule at all. We're not subject to the employment contracts. We're not subject to the,
Wow. I think you're off base, Gary, with a lot of that from the standpoint that we have to abide by the rules here. You know,
we make the rules. We are the rules.
we're going to disagree.
So where do we go from here?
I believe at this time, there are some dates outlined in an email that Ben sent to the board. Is the timetable, is that a fair statement, Mr. Zibble?
Yes. Say there is a timetable in there and the date of author or advertisement was October 2nd, I think.
As the draft document currently stands, pending any comments, the RFP would be released on October 2nd. We asked for comments to be back to us by the 28th so that they can be incorporated into the document and then we can move forward. However, the board would, we are a tool, just execute it, whatever.
So you're asking for comments by this Thursday, correct?
But just to be clear on that, the RFP does not go forward until we agree to send it as a board. Is that correct?
We agreed last month.
Is that what we agreed to? That we would actually release it? We haven't even approved it yet.
It's a fair question. We agreed to What was the motion for? Was the motion to go out for an RFP for legal services, or was it to draft a RFP for legal services? If you have them there, please. Thank you, Donna.
Well, you put all direction to the CEO.
Donna,
No.
can you use your microphone? Thank you. Oh, I probably have.
Motion to provide direction to the CEO to begin the RFQ/RFP process for legal services was made by Mr. Zibble, seconded by Ms. Stenger. And then it says motion to amend the previous motion to change from RFQ/RFP to competitive procurement for legal services was made by Ms. Pismont, seconded by Mr. Swanson. Those voting aye were myself, Ms. Pismont, Ms. Stenger, Mr. Swanson, and Mr. Zibble. Nays was Mr. Sheets.
Which part of the law don't you people understand? This is a board function only. We do not need an RFP for this because we don't need one. And that's that simple. It's the board function. And the board does what it wants to do based on the recommendations, or not the recommendations, the law that is written in the Ohio Revised Code. So why are we even talking about this? That's crazy. We're just wasting our time.
Because last month there was a vote 5-1 to move forward with an RFP. That's why we're talking about it.
Well, we can talk about it all we want. We're not going to have it because legally we can't.
Do you have the copy of the,
No, I don't have a copy of it.
excuse me, I wasn't finished with my sentence, but thank you. Okay, so you don't have a copy of it. I just would be interested in reading it, that's all. I didn't know if you had a copy of it with you
You want me to get a copy?
right now.
Whenever.
Yeah, whenever I can look it up when I get home, either way.
Well, why don't you look it up then?
I will, thank you.
This is absurd.
So going back to the question that I think is on the floor, did we authorize release or did we simply authorize the generation? Which is what I thought we had agreed to do, not to release it.
It says begin, and that is, in my opinion, that is vague. I think that can be interpreted both of your ways, because you're beginning the process by drafting it, which doesn't necessarily imply that you're then releasing it. By drafting it, you are beginning it. So we are in the way I would look at it with my legal brain, we are following the notion by beginning the process, because by drafting it, it is beginning the process. Where we go from here, I think that is an open question that both of you have valid points on.
Well, and the second motion was to change from RFP to competitive procurement for legal services. So
I think that, if I remember correctly, I think that was just like a cosmetic change or a wording change, if I remember correctly. I think we had some kind of conversation. And then Ms. Pismo restated it to kind of clarify that we were looking for competitive procurement.
Yes, I believe Ms. Pismo clarified. I would agree that the motion says to begin, regardless of RFQ, RFP, competitive procurement. This says motion to provide direction to the CEO to begin. Begin does not state finalize, begin to me states begin the process. I would interpret that to mean Mr. Zibble worked with Mr. Capel. They came up with some language that they thought would work. It was circulated for comments with a timetable in there. And that's the state that it's at right now. So I'm taking that to mean your question is, does that mean it can be circulated, or is there another motion needed by the board for it to be circulated? That it is just in draft form right now.
Well, my actual question was, did we agree that it would be released?
Released. Okay.
And I don't believe we have. It seems to me that's a whole nother vote.
Based on the terminology of begin. I could make an argument either way. I'd probably take the most conservative route, which is finalizing would be another vote. But that is the most conservative approach, in my opinion. And I don't know, Ben or Chuck, if you have anything different about my interpretation. I wasn't involved in any of it, so that's just me sitting off to the sides, making a statement.
But by a vote of 5-1, we did vote for competitive procurement.
We could, no, that's not exactly right. We voted to create that document. We didn't, you're implying that we voted to go forward with the process, and that's not what we voted on. We voted on creating the document, not releasing it.
Respectfully, I didn't read the word release. There was a motion to provide direction to the CEO to begin the RFQ/RFP process for legal services when made by Mr. Zibble, seconded by Ms. Stenger. Below that, immediate below, it says motion to amend the previous motion to change from RFQ/RFP to competitive procurement for legal services was made by Mr. Guzman, seconded by Mr. Swanson.
We will proceed however the board would like us to. I think that we're hung up. The change in language was because an RFQ has a very specific thing you procure, which is not legal services for us. That's the only reason that language was changed. Other than that, that's all that meant. So, but we'll do whatever you ask us to do.
You could, Donna,
Nevertheless,
you could insert the term, the terms in the change into the original sentence. Take the competitive,
Take RFQ/RFP out and put in competitive procurement. That's the only.
right.
That's the only
That's
change.
And
correct.
then
That's the
reread.
only
And
change.
what you said is, we've agreed to begin the process of building that document. That's what we agreed to do.
And I would argue differently on that.
There was zero discussion about releasing that document. Zero.
Okay, if I may speak for a second. I can only speak for myself, and I have only been on the board for a year. But I'm not comfortable moving forward with something that we don't understand if we either need it or not. I would like to be able to more fully investigate what Mr. Sheets is saying. I can only speak for myself. I only voted yes on that previous motion last month because I assumed that was the procedure that you all had always followed. And now it seems like I'm getting an indication that that is not the case. So I personally am not comfortable moving forward and would be voting no at this time. I'll be comfortable saying that out loud because I'm still getting a message that maybe all of this isn't even necessary. So for myself, I feel that I need to do some further research or talk to some people to get a better understanding of what's going on here. Because I just assume this is what you always do, and I'm getting the impression that is not true.
Kim, I can take a shot at maybe giving you a little bit of information, and I'll refer to comments that legal counsel made last year while we were in this discussion. And he presented data from the Ohio Revised Code, if I remember right, that basically said to what Lane's point was that we as a board have the right to hire legal services outside of competitive bidding. My words. I don't know remember exactly what the code said. But I believe you explained it at the board meeting a year ago when we started this discussion.
And just so you know, I've purposely tried to leave Brandon a little out of the discussion, but if you guys want Brandon.
Yeah, that's what I didn't know. I didn't know if I should,
chime in,
I was trying to be
that's-
I was trying to be careful for the same reason. I didn't know if Brandon was allowed to be a part of the discussion.
If you want me to provide the recitation of the code section, I'm happy to read that for everybody's edification. It's up to you.
I believe it would be helpful.
Ohio Revised Code Section 306.43H6 provides exemptions for competitive bidding. Procedures not required for the following. The purchase substantially involves services of a personal, professional, highly technical, or scientific nature, including but not limited to the services of an attorney, physician, surveyor, appraiser, investigator, court reporter, adjuster, advertising consultant, or licensed broker, or involves the special skills or proprietary knowledge required for the servicing of specialized equipment owned by the Regional Transit Authority.
Can you read me this number again? So it's 306.
306.43H6.
Thank you.
Historically, all of our procurements have been competitive and an RFP or RFQ has gone out. We have followed what the transit regulations were across the board.
Oh, I get that. The history doesn't necessarily mean that's the only way to do it or even the correct way to do it. Just because you've always done something that way doesn't necessarily mean it has to be done that way. I don't know. I'm just saying, making a statement. I don't know if that's true or not.
Well, it seems to me by the amendment of this motion that there was agreement 5-1 that taking out the RFQ/RFP phrase, it still says competitive procurement. Are we arguing against competitive procurement?
I think there's a couple things on the floor. I think what's this board's definition of the term begin? That's one. And I think is competitive procurement required in this case? If we go down the road of competitive procurement, there's two discussions. There's the ORC and there's the Laketran procurement manual. And that part of the discussion is what one trumps the other. And right now, it's based off of everyone's opinion. Mr. Dines objectively read the statute.
Let me ask this question.
I might
And-
not be able to answer the question.
Well, I'll pose the question and it's simply a question. It is not against Mr. Dines in any way. I want to say that up front. But given the current legal counsel would be reapplying or whatever language you want to use for the position, should we seek an independent opinion on what you just said? Does the policy manual rule or does ORC rule? Would that make sense? So all I can do is share my thought and I guess you can ruminate about it and figure it out.
Well, I was on the committee that when we hired Mr. Dines, there were other people that were interviewed, and the people that were doing the interviewing, we used our better judgment based on our knowledge of the people involved and based on the charges that we were going to be faced with. And actually, Mr. Dines was not my choice, sorry. But
I'm not sure you needed to add that, but continue on.
Just for the record, as an attorney and as a big boy, I take no offense to any of this, just to be clear. So
I didn't think,
trust me when I tell you.
I didn't think you would.
My 50-some years, this is okay.
Well, I just told you what I thought, and use our board-given powers to make sure that we make a good decision. And I think we did make a good decision. And so I don't understand what this is all about. I don't understand why we even spent the time and effort, whoever did it, to come up with an RFQ, or it's 35 pages long. Somebody had to spend a good amount of time on that, doing something that wasn't even necessary. I'm a little confused here with that. I don't even understand why you'd bring it up.
Because the contract's up and something has to be done. Is that a correct statement? A fair statement, Brian?
His contract, I believe, is up on December 31st of this year. Yes, his contract ends on December 31st of this year. That is a fair statement.
And is it a fair statement that because the contract expires, we have to do something?
I think that's also a very accurate statement.
Thank you.
This is a tough one to figure out what the next steps are. I'm going to be very honest with everyone. I mean, I'm getting the sense that there's a lot of consternation about moving forward with the RFP, or about finalizing this current RFP in its current form. I'm open for suggestions on what anyone would like to do. I know, Kim, you said you'd like to do some independent research.
Yeah, I'm sitting here doing it as we speak.
Well, I think Kim's point about determining what trumps what, I think it was Kim that said that.
I
Whether
think
you said that, sorry. You look like Kim. Uh,
I perked up at that when I heard that, yeah.
No cream cheese joke.
What did you say? I didn't hear it.
I'll tell you afterwards.
But it is coming from a guy that did put cream cheese.
All right,
on
you
top
had
of
to say it. You had to say it.
Okay, so this,
Taking that out of your board pay.
Yeah. You guys, you never heard that. Yeah, you all heard it by now.
They already know about it. Rumors travel a lot faster.
Anyway.
than-
Yeah, to get back to the point here, I personally do believe we should clarify this once and for all. What takes precedent? Is it the Ohio Revised Code? Or is our policy? And then a subset of that, is the board required to go by that policy?
So who do we want to make that determination?
Me.
Is that? I mean, that's, I think, kind of where the question's at. Is the question with Mr. Dines? Is the question with Ms. Stanger doing some research? Is the question with Ms. McNamee's extra attorney? Who makes that determination? That's where I think the roadblock is.
well, with all due respect, and again, no offense to Brandon, I don't know that it's really appropriate to ask Brandon to research something that affects him. That
I
seems,
agree. That's
that
what I'm
seems awkward.
trying-
That seems like a conflict.
I agree.
I don't know if I feel comfortable with it either.
Brandon would agree with that as well.
I would, and I just think as Ms. Stenger knows and Ms. Pijmo, any board member also has to be very careful. The suggestion of somebody on the outside doing it because, of course, our professional rules of responsibility could, her reading it is fine, but, offering advice, it would be unfair of the board to, just for my opinion, from our rules, to put Ms. Pijmo or Ms. Stenger in that position as well.
Well,
I completely agree. I
Yeah.
would just.
I agree.
I'll do
Yeah.
my recommendation.
We need it to be as clean a process as possible to make everybody
Yeah,
happy, for lack of better word.
So
yeah, I'm not.
then,
And I only say that because there was an attorney who got in trouble for doing that as a board member. I know they know that, but I just want everybody to be aware of that. That's a real problem.
In trouble, the appearance could
Yeah.
not be good.
okay, so then we will get an opinion on what is the best way to move forward with this. So we can also put this issue to bed once and for all, and every 12 or 24 months, not have to go through this.
And if, Brandon, if you could repeat that section, I scribbled it out here, and I can't read my own writing.
Sure. It's revised code section 306.43 H6.
Okay, I got it now. Thank you. I'm sure we'll all be reading it tonight.
Trying to remain as neutral as I.
Where would I get a copy of? Or where would I be able to see I'd like to be able to see both sides of the story. Where would I get what other Chuck is referring to in the procurement manual?
Well, whenever anyone asks a technical question like that, I refer them to Mr. Zibble, who has all this stuff on standby at a moment.
We can put the procurement manual on Govenda if it's not already there.
We'll get it to you, Kim, and we'll let you know where it is.
Not that I'm not to be responsible because I agree with Brandon, but I also know that myself, I would like to read everything for myself because that will make my informed decision.
I think
I
that's
think we should just ask that it be sent to all the board members.
I will email it to everybody and I will email a copy and include a link to where it can be obtained on Govenda should you lose that email.
Thank you.
This is a thought that you could take or leave. Would you, OTRIP has a pre-defense legal thing. I could, if you'd like me to get a legal opinion where I don't even have personal contract with the lawyer, we could pose the question to ODRIP's pre-defense fund and then it comes out of them if you want, or you, just a thought, doesn't have to go that way, just thinking of resources that exist.
Well, that seems like a better idea than just asking a random attorney who may not have experience with transit law. It seems like it would be a better idea to go with somebody who has some kind of transit and statutory experience.
Of course, anyone we go with would have transit and applicable experience in this area of the law.
Just in case it would come up.
And anyone that gives an opinion will not be with Brandon's firm or my firm.
I was going to ask, just in case it came up, that the amount of the contract that we would be hiring someone under is over a certain amount. My recollection was legal counsel's contract is currently well over $100,000 potentially.
I don't believe that's the case for this year.
Well, can somebody give me an idea?
Looking at Trudy, year to date, I think we're high 60s.
Yes.
Year to date.
Okay, so
So we've not gone over 100 in the past, to my knowledge.
Should we document that as well?
I mean, in the request. I don't
No.
document, it's in the
No,
financial, I don't
just-
understand your question.
Oh,
So that whoever we have do this review, that they are aware of at least an approximate amount of what level contract we're talking about.
I don't think, I'm not sure that matters. The way I'm looking at the statute, I don't think that the dollar amount matters because section 8 or H6 is exempt from it's talking about exemptions to the overall limit of it has to exceed $100,000 to go to competitive bidding. The statute is an exemption to that, meaning it doesn't matter what the price is. That's not relevant. I'm not sure that would be relevant here.
Okay.
That's how I read it.
Let's close this discussion and have Ben talk to his people in Columbus or wherever it is and see what they say. Because continuing on and on here is just a waste of time because we don't know the answer.
well, we
Okay.
have to allow our colleagues time to voice their opinion. Everyone has a
Oh, we
voice.
have.
And Ben and I will get going on this project to get an answer for everyone as quick as reasonably possible.
Would it be more appropriate, Brian, for you to pursue this rather than putting our CEO in the middle of it?
Given the rate of pay for the position, sometimes I need a little assist and Ben's been helpful with that. So I would appreciate some of his at least legwork for me. Okay. So in new business, is there any more discussion on legal services RFP? Seeing none. Is there any other new business? Is there a motion to adjourn today's Board of Trustees meeting?
So moved.
Motion made by Ms. Stanger,
Second.
seconded by Ms. McNamee. Trudy, can you please call the roll?
Yes.
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 Thank you, everyone. We are adjourned at 4:46 today. Thank you very much.
I just want to say that board meeting was only an hour long for the future record.